And welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can of course follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Friday's edition of the DCEU Daily. And thank you for the compliments about the shirt. There's also a pink one and a purple one, which I'll take it each week to wear a different one. You're saying, you dirty sod, you're wearing the same shirt all week. Well, I don't wear it for the whole day, I just wear it for these videos, so I'm not going to shove it in the washing machine for half an hour of wearing it each day. Shut up, I'll do what I want. Anyway, welcome to Friday's edition of the DCEU Daily, and today we're talking about the Snyderverse, the hatred for it, and I just want to investigate. I want to know why people hate Snyder. I don't want to talk about his other projects, his other films. I want to talk about Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, his extended plan for the DCEU, and his Snyder Cut. Warner Brothers are not to blame because of the Snyderverse being halted. They're not. They're just a reactive company who just wanted an easy life and to make easy money. That's why his vision was halted. Not because of them, because of you. Because of you people out there, you minority of fans and toxic entertainment media going after Snyder. I've seen disgusting things on Twitter from comic book writers, from respectable, verified entertainment journalists and consumers and fans. Now I can take it from the average Joe and Jane, or however you identify, right? Those people are not hugely educated, they just react angrily, right, when something happens in the entertainment industry or in life itself, right? I can take it off of you, but what I can't take is what was said about Snyder by journalists and respected people from the industry itself. During the fight to restore the Snyder Cut, there was some horrible stuff being said. I remember even Rian Johnson making fun of the fight to release the Snyder Cut. This is how toxic and disgusting this is. Snyder is not supported by many elite people within the industry and the entertainment industry. That's what's so terrible about this. I would love a nuanced discussion with journalists and people from the industry, creative, artistic people who hate Snyder's way of making films. But basically, what is people's beef with his DC movies? They look beautiful, they feel beautiful, they're exciting, they do take themselves seriously. That's okay, because you don't have to take yourself seriously or your film seriously. There's plenty of films since the creation of the art form where you can just have fun. There's Chaplin, there's Laurel and Hardy, there's Harold Lloyd, there's Ghostbusters, there's Police Academy. It goes on and on and on. But some of us like the serious takes. Why did you lot make the Joker movie over $1 billion? Because you liked your Joker being taken seriously, and the serious commentary of how we treat people, not men, but everyone with mental health conditions, and what happens to those people. Well, we keep on kicking them to the curb. What happens is Arthur Fleck. Now, some people didn't like that commentary. Well, up yours. It matters and it worked, and that film's brilliant, and we're getting a sequel. He may even be in the Batman. Who knows? But who I really want to see this video, who won't see this video, is the top sites. Your IGNs and your Hollywood Reporters and your Varieties and journalists from Collider. Collider journalists were the worst to label toxicity against Snyder for his artwork. You're the reason we got Justice League. Even saying that the Snyder Cut is better than Justice League is a fucking insult. This video is better than Justice League. In this video, all my videos are made with very poor quality. I think even I can admit that. That wasn't a compliment. That's not giving something a rave review. Now, there was a very respectable site from a guy who was a very respectable critic, and I forgot his name now, who did a really brilliant review of the Snyder Cut and called it what it is. He called it art. He called it cinema. And it was a beautiful review, and I think I read it out here. The Snyder Cut is an amazing movie. Batman vs Superman is an amazing movie with something very important to say. And Man of Steel has amazing commentary, really talking about us going to other worlds, trying to see if we can live out there. Was it what Michael Shannon said in the bonus features of Man of Steel? We fucked this world up now, so we're always looking for another world to fuck up. The Kryptonians fucked up their own world, then they wanted to turn Earth into Krypton. That's exactly what we're trying to do, what our governments are trying to do. Because very soon, maybe not in our lifetime, but sooner rather than later, the Earth won't be habitable for human beings. We've done that. Governments have done that. Great commentary. So what I really want to know from these comic book writers, from these journalists and people within the industry, why the hate for this director? Because he doesn't join your country clubs? Because he's not one of you? Because he's different? Or is it that he actually loves comic books, he loves the art form, and he takes it seriously? I'd love to know. And I want to directly address the Snyderverse fandom, which I'm a part of. Now, you lot are very, very serious about Zack and his art. I respect you. I understand your frustration. I don't always agree with how you conduct yourselves, but I understand. I genuinely do. It is mystifying, isn't it? That we're in this situation. And as I said earlier, it's nothing to do with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers are just a studio who want to make money. Their conduct is understandable. They were in a no-win situation between a rock and a hard place. Do you think they really don't respect him as an auteur? Of course they do. They chose him. They put him in there. It was a very different way of making comic book movies. They went with Nolan because of the Dark Knight trilogy. Everyone loved the Dark Knight trilogy, but then the MCU came along and everything changed. All of a sudden we were hearing, why doesn't the DCEU have Kevin Feige? Oh, why can't it be like Disney? Why can't it be like the MCU? The whole point was, this is Warner Brothers, the home of auteur creatives. It was never going to be like the MCU. Snyder had a really good plan, and it wasn't a plan that was going to last forever. He was going to do his bit, then move along. But you journalists and you comic book people and all you elites in the industry didn't allow it to happen. So then Warner Brothers went absolutely mad, brought Whedon in, did terrible CG on Cavill's upper lip. We haven't seen Cavill since. The whole thing's a mess now, and this is why they're enacting this multiverse strategy, because they made a mess. Snyder was going to do all of this after his arc. He was going to do a flashpoint and allow somebody else to start again. He was going to do all these things. He's publicly stated that. What was the more logical thing to do? Allow him to finish his arc, his story, his vision, or boot him out and bring in Joss Whedon with somebody else's crew and cast? You saw what happened. Naturally, Whedon didn't want them and they didn't want Whedon. It was a nightmare. We've heard what Ray Fisher's had to say. I'm not surprised with what went down, because basically it's like turning up at the wrong wedding. It's like the groom marrying the wrong bride. Nobody wants each other. The families, the in-laws, the bride, the groom, nobody wants each other. It was a crazy thing to do. Snyder had already gone back multiple times to try and find a script to suit Warner Brothers, to tone his vision down. And ultimately, when you see the Snyder Cut, this classic fucking movie, it's got humour, it's got hope. That was always his plan. But he wanted to deconstruct the characters to reconstruct them. But isn't it sad that us Snyder fans of the DCEU have to keep on explaining Snyder's mentality? Isn't it obvious what he was trying to do? But you wouldn't leave it alone. He's this, he's that. You were treating Zack Snyder like he was Jack the Ripper. So the narrative from journalists, the narrative from the industry itself, from the comic book world, from respectable people. Now there's some great older comic book writers who had a lot of respect for Zack and showed him respect, via the Snyder Cut. The person who actually created the New Gods, and Darkseid, his son, I think, came out and loved what they did with Apocalypse and Darkseid. Who wouldn't love that? Fans always say, how can you take Darkseid out of the movie? How can you not release that movie? Because they were afraid. It wasn't necessarily probably the movie, it was probably necessarily the man who made the movie. His name was Mud. But to this day, I don't understand why his name was Mud. I've tried to be quite balanced about this situation and say, listen, the mainstream audience wasn't having Snyder. He had to go. And from a Warner Brothers perspective, that's true. But when you look at the logical perspective and logic, let's look at logic. Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, all interconnected to his vision. Wonder Woman, not so much so, because by then they were moving away from Snyder. But Wonder Woman 2017 is a great movie. Justice League is a terrible movie. Aquaman's a great movie. Shazam's a great movie for the kids and the parents. And then, basically, since Justice League, right? I think that the DCEU's been on a sabbatical, right? As I say, Aquaman's brilliant. Shazam's okay. Birds of Prey isn't that great. Wonder Woman 84 is a disaster area. Even though I don't think it's a disastrous, terrible movie, but it has issues within the movie. And ultimately, since Snyder's gone, it hasn't been the same. And that's the problem. So I think we're getting back the DCEU next year. Because at least we've got people like Matt Reeves, we've got Black Adam, we've got the Flash movie, we've got some real people making movies again, and that's exciting. We'll have to see how we get on. And we're getting a Joker sequel, and we've got so many projects greenlit, and I'm excited about that. We would have got that anyway, because Snyder was going to close off his vision with a flashpoint of his own. We were always going to go to the multiverse strategy anyway. That was the next step. Snyder's idea was, when he was done, that different people work on the DCEU, and maybe him as an executive producer, his name always there. His name will probably always be there. What is my opinion of the Snyderverse? I think it's beautiful, it's well made, it looks like how I imagine seeing a live action comic book world. It looks beautiful, it's about gods and monsters, it's amazing, the characters are depicted wonderfully. For me it works, and I will never understand to this day why the hatred was so deep. I can understand you not liking a piece of art, because art is subjective, of course it is. But the depths and the anger that people went to and displayed on social media, the reaction to Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, it was puzzling to me. I came out of the cinema the first time after BVS and I was emotionally drained. I loved it. I thought this was a multiple Oscar, worthy movie. It's well made, it's well written, it's fantastic. It deconstructs Superman and reconstructs him into the hero we know and love. He makes the ultimate sacrifice. Batman becomes the Batman we know and love by the third act. So people were just more kind of focused, oh, Batman kills, Superman just doesn't smile, he doesn't speak enough. And I will never understand the reaction to the film in the depth of the hatred. Never in my life will I understand some of the things being said, the poking fun of the Martha moment. Are you that dumb that you don't understand what they were saying? But no, you didn't want to understand, because by then the rivalry between MCU fans and DCEU fans really started. So MCU fans started the hate for Snyder's work as well, because they were stirring it up, because they were intimidated by what Zack was doing. Jesus Christ, even Fake himself admitted the only reason he did Civil War because he was intimidated by Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. What we've had in the Snyderverse is pure art form, pure art. It is beautiful, it works, it's compelling. They're the kind of superhero movies I want to see. I also want to see the silly ones, a bit the jokey ones that really don't do the serious stuff. I want a variety. But ultimately, Snyder wasn't going to be with the DCEU forever. He was just telling one story. And maybe he could have done offshoots as well in the future. You just don't end things the way they ended them. You don't treat a man like entertainment media did. And we have to talk about entertainment media. Their conduct was disgusting. Disgusting. I've never seen such a lack of professionalism in journalism in my entire life. And I talk about all types of journalism. Sporting journalism, current affairs journalism. I've never seen the likes of the hatred towards this man from journalists himself. The numbers on Rotten Tomatoes just don't add up. How do you give Black Widow a full scorecard? How do you give Wonder Woman 84 a full scorecard, but then you give Man of Steel and BVS low Rotten Tomatoes scores? It doesn't make sense. And of course people are going to say, are you getting paid off to give these DC movies bad reviews? Because people are suspicious, and there's a lot of people within the industry who hate Snyder as well, and that's disappointing. Some of these critics complaining that Snyderverse fans came after them. You came after Zack, and that was alright, and what you said about him was toxic and unfair, but that was okay. But when it's done to you, when the boot's on the other foot, you don't like it. And that's the issue here. Elites live in a bubble, and they want everyone to kiss their backside. And if you don't, it's the block button for you. It's the mute button for you. They don't even want to hear a constructive debate. No, because we're the little people, and what we think doesn't matter. The critics have their say, and that's the end. The truth is, we no longer need critics. We have our own platforms now. We are all over Twitter, all over YouTube. We don't need you. We don't need you to tell us and advise us what's a good movie and what's a bad movie, because you don't even do that anymore. All you do is suck Disney off and slaughter WB at every opportunity. You're not even unbiased people. You're biased. The MCU is the best thing ever. Star Wars is the best thing ever. You absolutely gave The Last Jedi full marks while destroying Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice in the public perception. Batman vs Superman is leaps and bounds better than The Last Jedi. Again, it's up to you if you like that film. I can't tell you what to like. But for me, all Johnson does in that film is destroy everything that people love. That's not what Snyder's doing. Snyder is at least attempting to tell a proper original story about superheroes in the real world. Now some of you will say, well, we don't want our superheroes to be gritty and in the real world. That's fine. But to take that and give out the level of hate to a director never made sense to me. I mean, I experienced this whole thing even before I started a YouTube channel. I did one video about BVS that got a lot of views on an old YouTube channel that I don't even know where it is anymore. Did very well. I tried to explain all the misconceptions of BVS and put them down to the bullshit that they are. The problem with social media, each one of us is pushing our own propaganda. And the MCU fans are just trying to pour hate onto our franchise all the time because they're scared of DC. Because DC has better characters. It does. Better characters. You see, at the end of the day, success isn't about box office. It's not. Not in terms, it shouldn't be for a fandom or stands. It should be what the piece of work means to you. Is Iron Man cinema? Is it a great piece of cinema? No. Is Iron Man 2 a great piece of cinema? No. Is Incredible Hulk a great piece of cinema? Well, actually, it's a lot better than the previous movies. Thor Ragnarok, Thor the Dark World. Is this great cinema? No. None of it is. None of it is. Very few of it. Captain America and the Winter Soldier, that is definitely cinema. But there's not enough of those films. Avengers Infinity War, definitely cinema. Avengers Endgame, no. The third act's okay, the rest of the film is a load of crap. It's a rip-off of Back to the Future 2. The MCU, all the MCU has is a connective tissue and big box office. It has very little rewatchability. But these media types, these people from the industry kind of shill it to bits. They're lying to you. It's not great cinema. Martin Scorsese is right. It's nothing but a Disney ride, park ride. That's it. You go on it, it's okay, you come off of it, and you never go on it again. The rewatchability is very little. And as I've said many a times on social media and on here, history will be kinder to the DCEU than it will be to the MCU. Who talks about Stock Aitken and Waterman now and the music they were making? Some of you may know who Stock Aitken and Waterman are. I've mentioned them here before. Great fun songs, good looking artists, Rick Astley, you know, all them lot, Kylie and Jason. But who thinks about them now? Are they classic? Are they re-listenable? Did I even say that word properly? But you know what I mean. The MCU is just for now. There's no longevity to it. It's not cinema. It's just about Disney making money. The director of Eternals said that, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said MCU have always been able to display the world at its most corrupt, because she says Civil War is her favourite movie, MCU movie. Now, it's up to her what she likes, but I think the DCEU under Snyder has shown that in so many better forms, because the Snyderverse is about superheroes in the real world and the MCU isn't. That's it. Snyder's movies have made money. They haven't made as much money as Aquaman or Joker, but they've made money. None of Snyder's movies are a dead flop. Yes, Man of Steel, you know, a Superman film, I'm being honest, needs to make more money than it did. A film with a Batman and Superman in needs to make more money. But these were alternate films. These weren't even mainstream films. So they were never going to make that money. It's not about money. It was for Warner Brothers, but that's where the misunderstanding was between two parties. Snyder is working as an auteur, as a creative, as an artist. He's just going to make the movie. He doesn't give a shit about the box office. That's not his lookout. He was just making his art. He was just delivering his art. He was just painting his Mona Lisa, if you like. That's what Man of Steel, that's what BVS and the Snyder Cut are. Snyder's Mona Lisa, as his Watchmen is as well, and all his other movies. He's painting his Mona Lisa, his classic. And everything he touches is classic. And his DC work is phenomenal and has something very compelling to say. But the Philistines, who don't understand art, who don't understand the subjective kind of format that art has for every individual person, didn't get that. So they attacked, because that's all they can do, because they were scared. Because if they never attacked the Snyderverse as deeply as they did, it would have defeated the MCU. It would have been successful. So I'll say it again. The people to blame are not Warner Brothers, just a company who want an easy life and want to make easy money. Simple as that. And they've just been trying to find a way to do that. They started off the DCEU by it being about an auteur trying to make art. Then, somewhere down the road, they wanted to be like the MCU. They made mistakes. Walter Hamada bringing James Gunn in, still after that Disney money. Didn't happen cinematically, but I do feel they made lots of money on HBO Max. But still, I'm sure they would have wanted a bigger hit. But you see, when you go after the secret ingredients that somebody else has, it never works. Warner Brothers should try and do what they're best at. Making movies with real auteur directors with an artistic vision. Because that's where the studio comes from. Whether it's a comedy, whether it's a serious film like the Snyderverse films, whatever. So the key issue here is the reaction to Snyder's work. And this is what destroyed the Snyderverse. Well, it didn't destroy the Snyderverse because we've got 3 beautiful movies. And who knows what the future holds. Now, moving away from that in the last 4 or 5 minutes before we finish today's DCEU Daily, I want to talk about Christopher Nolan and I want to talk about the future of Warner Brothers. Someone asked me the other day, what would it take for Christopher Nolan to return? For everyone working at Warner Brothers during the day and date to be sacked. It's as simple as that. If Zaslav comes in and sacks Toby, sacks Ann Sarnoff, sacks Hamada, you know, Kilar's going. That's the biggest roadblock in the way of Nolan coming back. He's the one who made the day and date decision. He admits he may have made a mistake or the way he handled it wasn't great. Too little, too late. I agree with day and date. I think they had no choice, but they did use it to uplift HBO Max. There's no question about that. That is undeniable. So that is the key to getting Nolan back, getting rid of everyone at Warner Brothers right now. I don't know what Zaslav and Discovery are going to do, because up till now they've had an easy life. They've just, you know, Discovery Plus is just basically a few channels with documentaries. So he is going to have to bring in people who know what they're doing, because he's never been in this situation before. He's never worked in fiction before, this type of entertainment before. So if he's smart, and I think that he is, he's going to have to bring people who understand the industry. He has to do what Iger did, bring in the best people, buy the best IPs. That hasn't always worked out for Iger. It worked out with Pixar, it worked out with Marvel Studios, it hasn't thus far really worked out with Lucasfilm, but since he's got Kevin Feige's people on the job, at least in terms of streaming The Mandalorian and other stuff like that, Star Wars is starting to find its feet under Disney, but still not making the money. You know, they bought Lucasfilm to make the real money. It hasn't done that thus far consistently. So that's what Zaslav has to do. Will he really sack all those people? I don't know. We'll wait and see. But to get Christopher Nolan back, and I'm not sure if that's a motivating factor, but he has said he is talking to people in Hollywood, in the company and mostly outside the company, to get a gauge and gain advice, which is a good thing. It's always great to at least get the advice. You don't have to listen to it all, but listening to a few people in your ear hole is always great, especially experienced people who understand the industry, something that AT&T were never willing to do. They just came in to make a quick buck. This sale will make them the quick buck. They're getting out of Dodge, and now it's down to Discovery to rebuild Warner Brothers. And it does need rebuilding, and they do need to bring back people like Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder. In whatever form that is in, I don't care. Whether it's cinematic, central universes, Elseworlds, I don't care. But when you've got people as talented as Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder, and I don't agree on Nolan's obsession with cinema and how he was trying to egg people on during the peak of the pandemic before vaccines to go to movie theatres. I don't agree with that, but I love Nolan's work and I respect him as an artist. And I want him back at the studio. It's my studio. That's how I see it. Like David Ayer sees Warner Brothers as his home studio, I see Warner Brothers as my studio as well. So I want Nolan back. I want Snyder back. I want them to be ours. I don't want them making stuff for Netflix. But they are. And, you know, not Nolan, but Snyder. But Zaslav can get the auteurs back at Warner Brothers. We want to keep Denis Villeneuve. We want to keep Matt Reeves. We want all these people, these talented people at Warner Brothers. And David Zaslav will fix this situation and rebuild Warner Brothers. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that little bell on top of you or wherever it is so you never miss this perfection. I will see you again on tomorrow's DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye.